it gives me an option now.
Hey, Jeremy, Aranda. So fired up that you're able to have this quick conversation. Loved kind of your thoughts on this topic and how you and your wife have been intentional. So here's the question. Random guy from our group, our Facebook community group says, my wife typically doesn't answer questions when I ask her questions about direction, about family stuff, about vision stuff, about what we're going to do Friday night, bigger plans for the family, or even just the guys getaway. Hey, I want to get away with the guys in a couple of weeks, whatever. So there's the generic setup for the question. What advice or what ways of working through this? And feel free to ask another question if you want some refinement to that. But the generic is, hey, I got questions. I think I want to go this direction. What do you think, honey? And the answer is, whatever you think.
Well, so my answer, Dan's probably going to come from weakness. It's not going to come from strength and solution. It's going to come from making mistakes. But typically, I think my wife and probably all of our wives are like everyone else. They really actually want us to value and actually seek out what they think and believe. And so I have not always done that, but I can tell you when I've been most successful is if my wife tells me to make a decision, then I should make it. But that's not meaning she doesn't want me to consider her. And so typically the most effective times I've ever had are when I say, fantastic, I'll make it. I really want to make it so that it's great for us. And what I value is when all of us are engaged. So if she's asking me, for example, about the family, then I would say, hey, when do you think, what kind of activities that we do where people light up in our family that gets us most involved? When do you find the most peaceful experience, right, when we're together? And I start drilling in with questions because my wife and me, really, we want to be known. We want to be listened to and valued. And so if I'm really trying to build intimacy with my wife, then you decide is an invitation to plumb her heart, right? To plumb her soul and to really find out what she cares about and then to honor her and make the decision, right? Not keep going, no, you decide, no, you decide. I think that probably is the most frustrating thing for her in the world, which
Right.
I've successfully done over and over again. But when I don't, when I actually hear that as opportunity and I lean into it and then say, okay, well, for me to decide, I want to know what you value. I want to know what you care about. And then I will make a decision and I will do the plan. And so that in that way, it still draws us together and creates that beautiful, intimate relationship that we all desire.
Yeah, that's great. So questions like, what do you believe that would give the most energy to the family?
Mm-hmm.
How can we be more connected and also minimize the stress involved?
Yeah, I'd actually even go the flip too. Um, I think sometimes it's easier for all of us to say what we don't like. So are there any types of activities that really stress you out or you feel like it's hard on the family? Those will be much more quickly answered than what's your favorite? And I never, anytime I ask for like favorites or absolutes, I never get a good answer. But if I say, give me a few things, and typically I'm asking them what not to do, it's narrowing the scope, right? And helping me to understand my wife and my family better. Um, but it's easier for all people to answer what they don't like rather than what they do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I agree with you there. Hey, what's your very favorite thing? Like the most on top of everything, and it's like that limits the spontaneity of the answer,
Totally.
and that just spontaneous spitball off the top of your head's probably the answer.
Hmm. And if I ask my wife what not to do, she's great at it. Boom, 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 boom. The list comes out. And by the way, so am I. Like if someone asks me what I don't like, typically as human beings, we can answer that really quickly, but it takes us more time to process what are the things that are the most valuable. So we can kind of drill in by going the opposite direction.
So it's so funny as I hear you say that, I'm thinking, okay, so work stuff. What's the thing that you enjoy the most at work? Or what's something you really enjoy at work? Boom, answer, done. Hey, what are the things that you just can't stand? Done. And ask questions like that
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah, exactly. At home. with your wife, and about things like when you say, hey, we're going to go on a date, and honey, what do you want to do? I don't know. You decide. Okay, great. I want to decide well. Can you name anything that you've hated that we've done? Help me. What do you like? What types of things? What about, and even be specific, like, do you enjoy it when we do this type of activity? Do you enjoy it when we go outdoors? Do you enjoy it when there's lots of activities planned, or do you like space? Um, and then make the decision. Don't put it back on her, because I think, at least for my wife, she hates it when she tells me to make a decision, and then I come back and say, well, no, okay, well, why don't you make it? And I keep pushing it back to her. I need to
Hmm.
honor her if she asks me to make it, but I can do that by also trying to know her more.
So between you and your wife, so personal, not all that
Mhm.
personal question, but between you and your wife, who makes more decisions about the family every day?
Every day, I absolutely think she does, which is the interesting part, which is probably why she has decision fatigue and doesn't want to make
Exactly.
decisions when all of a sudden we're talking about something extra.
I was thinking that's probably more of a 95% of the time, or even close to 100% of the time, the wife makes more of the daily decisions. And decision fatigue does set in. And one of the ways where our wives can feel valued is when we step up and make the decisions and be
Mhm.
decisive men, so they can feel valued and loved. And you'll feel respected because she'll respect you for making decisions. So, one thing you said earlier before we started recording was, hey, honey, question for you. Would you like me to make this decision today? Would you like me to take action on this one? I would.
Absolutely.
However, after asking some probing questions and digging deeper with the how might we, or what do you think a good way to be, or how is the energy of the family? What do you think? You've got some fantastic questions. Have you got any additional type probing questions?
Hmm. I think the only other one I would add is it okay if I ask you a few questions so that I can make sure I have a better idea of what I want to choose by understanding what you care about, making sure she's in a space to be asked questions. There are probably
Yes.
times too where she's exhausted and literally she just needs you to make a choice. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and so
Absolutely.
knowing where she's at, I mean, like anything, right? Relationships are about intimacy, and that means we have to know people. And as men, we typically assume a lot. At least I do. And when we assume, we tend to not know our wives, right? And intimacy comes by actually knowing them and not assuming. So we have to ask.
Fantastic. And then another bit of thought, you and I have talked about this in the past, is how do you, how is a way that you feel loved when you're talking with your wife? How is a way that you feel loved by me?
Hmm.
I think is a good question as well.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt, asking, always asking. Again, this goes back to the assumption thing, right? Like if we think, well, I got her flowers, she must know I love, but my wife doesn't appreciate the flowers, right? That's not a way she feels loved, which by the way, my wife does. So it's a very effective thing for us because she knows I thought about her at a time when I didn't have to,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's but every woman is unique in that. So actually asking her, what do I do where you feel loved? Then helps us to actually do those things because we're being intentional to love her in the way she desires and not in the way we want to do it.
Mm-hmm. So let me throw a random scenario out there for you. So I want to go out of town. I want to do this one, or maybe both.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, honey, like a really cool rock climbing trip coming up, or really cool adventure thing, all with guy groups.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, honey? Which way should I go? Do you have an opinion? I'd love your opinion. Can you help?
Depends on probably your wife's mood. She might come back with you and say sure and enter in and help you think through because she knows you so well. Um, she might also be like, do what you want to do. Maybe the better question, if I'm going to go on a guy trip, I'm asking myself the question of, have I invested into my wife and our relationship first? Have I created space to actually have time with just her and me if I'm going to go time with just the guys? Because it's both are really essential and important and good. But she might feel, even in asking that question, if I haven't invested into her first, that I care more about getting away, which wouldn't be true, right? We go away so that we come back stronger, but for her to know that, I have to be investing in her at the same time.
So let's say you get the answer back of, I don't know, whatever you think.
Well,
Red
then
flag? Red flag?
um, maybe on that one, not as much because it's about the guys. If I'm asking her, should we do like family stuff or say, hey, I'm thinking about this trip. Do you feel like for me, this trip is more important, or is it more important to work on, like, do we need time for you and me or time for the family? So having her help you prioritize the type of activity, right? If it's choosing between man trip, um, she may literally not have an opinion,
Right.
right? And so that's okay. If what I would do if it was a guy trip is I would then be saying, hey, I'm thinking about going on one of these. Here's the value so I can come back and love our family better. Um, do you think this is the right time for that? Or do you think that we need right now more individual time for you and me or more time for us as a whole family? Like, where's the best time spent? And that priority discussion is so valuable because you can hear her heart, right? And you two can get on the same page and you can lead your family together well because you're in the same vision.
So let's say you're in a good space. You can talk about it, but you get the follow-up answer. I don't know. That one sounds good to me. It sounds fine. Quick,
I,
short,
quick
not
short, then
not
I'm
not
like, I'm
rude,
like,
but
yeah, quick short. Then I'm going, okay, well, are there any times where we've done something where you've been like, this is amazing, right? Because I'm gonna make decisions because you're asking me to. But like, I want to understand like what lights you up the most, or have you seen me if it's the guy trip? Have you seen me go on something where I come back better? And what types of activities are those, right? Because she will see things that you don't. As my wife does, she's invaluable in the sense that she knows me better than I know myself. And so asking her when she sees fruit or asking her when she sees our family really have a rich experience together, or when have you and I grown in our relationship? Those are all great questions. The flip, or even if she's not answering, go to the negative. Hey, are there any experiences where I've gone on the guy thing and you're like, you did not come back better and that was a waste of time? She might
right.
list those. Be ready.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
But so the negative is always, again, an easier thing for people to recognize. But those probing questions where you want to know her heart and her insight and you value her. I feel like, and the flip is true, by the way, when my wife does that to me, right? Those are moments where we build intimacy because we get beyond our own selfishness and we begin to say, I want to know you, I value you, and I'm taking the time to be have an intimate discussion with you.
Well, we just had Jay Warner Wallace on the podcast, and he said, not 100 relationship, have 100 relationship, 100% unconditional love for your wife, which, as we know, is impossible.
Amen.
However, we can strive for that. The zero part was having zero expectations that we place on our wife that are unspoken. So I have conversations about those kind of things. And what I'm hearing you say is find ways to love your wife unconditionally and have her feel that love by her understanding that she is valued and prioritized and cherished by you as your number one person on earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way she wants you to cherish her, and the way
Yes.
she wants you to value her, not the way
Not the way we
you want to
think.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Not the
and
way
we
we think.
typically try to love people like we want to be loved. And if the odds hold true, we probably didn't marry someone just like us. And so if they're not like us and we love them like we want to be loved, a lot of times we're actually doing the opposite of what we intend. So great intention, but terrible execution because we're actually not asking them and saying, how do you want to be loved? When do you feel valued? Like really trying to understand them.
Oh, so good. So good. So, everybody that just took a quick listen, we want to do a quick hitter today. We've got a future podcast recording set up down the road. So, I welcome you. Thanks for listening to this little teaser. Hopefully, you got some great stuff. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm going to listen to this one over and over and over again. Love how short it is and love how much wisdom there was packed into this short little few minutes.
My pleasure, Dan. And it was awesome being on with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. God bless.